I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes.
Hi everyone.
So
this is the first Halloween podcast that we're doing. We're just basically focusing on a selection of the films, not the whole franchise, but most of it, from Halloween 1 up to H2O. And then when the new film comes out and we all get to see it at the cinema, then we'll come back and we'll talk about that. So we'll finish with that. The new film. So I'm joined by Luke to discuss this. How are you, Luke?
I'm okay, thanks, Frank.
Good. So what we're going to do first, before we go into the very first Halloween, the original 1978 film, and just give our little overview of it. We're not going to go into every shot by shot, scene by scene. We're just going to give our impressions of it and our memories of it, really, and certain things that stood out for us in that. So, but before that, we're going to talk about the new trailer that dropped for the new Halloween film.
Hey.
Which is really exciting, and it's created a huge buzz. And I know that the site, that the Halloween Movies site, I think it is, on Twitter, has almost 3 million hits.
Yeah.
Since it came out. It came out yesterday, on the 8th of June. So, I mean, you know, it's proving, it's causing quite a buzz, this new one, based on the trailer alone. You know, we don't know any more, but we've only got a couple of minutes of trailer to go by, but that's certainly causing excitement. So give us a little bit of a potted history about this trailer, Luke.
Okay.
What led up to it, you know?
First thing I heard was Jamie Lee Curtis was doing a Q&A on stage, and she showed the trailer. Obviously, we didn't get it over here till yesterday.
Yeah.
So when I saw it, I shared it on social media like crazy, and watched it, and I thought it was amazing. I thought it was really good. 40 years later,
yeah,
and Michael's in a hospital, in a mental hospital again, and you got new characters in it, new actors. Obviously, we've got Laurie Strode back, which is brilliant, played by the original Scream Queen, Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah,
and it just looks really gripping, and I can't wait for it. It's a shame it hasn't got Donald Pleasance in it, because he was very good in the original.
Oh yeah.
The second one, I believe, as well. Yeah, was he in the third one? No, I don't think he was.
With Donald Pleasance, he's been in part 1 and 2.
Yeah, it was in 1 and 2.
It was Season of the Witch, so none of them were in it. He was in parts 4. He was in, and then he was back with Myers in part 4, 5, and 6.
Oh right, okay, yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah, he did 5 of them. He did an awful lot of them.
Yeah. He's very good, good actor.
But you remember
really
in the trailer, there's a little nod to him in that. If you remember, very very quick moment where those 2 reporters that have come along to see Myers.
Yeah.
Those English reporters, because they're doing they're doing a murder documentary about Myers. And so they're over there, like, you know, interviewing people that were, you know, there at the time when the killings were happening in Haddonfield and that.
Yeah.
And doing like this sort of like crime documentary thing, because that's kind of a popular thing that's going around at the moment. So they're kind of exploiting that, the true crime film documentaries. And so you see them going through like all the evidence, like these documents and stuff, and you see these pictures and things, and of a knife, and you see all this, that, and the other. And there's
the mask.
Yeah, and there's one very brief sketch, like an artist impression sketch. When people are in courtrooms, they draw the people in the stand and that,
Yeah.
and you can see there's a drawing of Loomis, of Donald Pleasant's Dr. Loomis. So he was in a court at some point, obviously giving evidence or something. So there's a little throwback to him there, And I was trying to work out from the trailer, and it's so quick, a trailer, no matter how many times you see it, trailer is so condensed, and they cut from things so rapidly, that you can't get a handle on images very quickly, the time you're trying to look at something, absorb something that's happening on screen, it cuts to something else. But I was trying to work out which parts in that trailer were Nick Castle and which parts were this new guy who's playing Myers, this taller guy who's a stuntman. Because there's two of them playing Myers in this. So I don't know which is Nick, and I don't know which bit.
We watched the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple of moments there when I was looking at the trailer, and I could tell that was Nick Castle. Because Nick Castle has a very distinctive walk,
Okay.
If you remember in the first film, he had a certain way of movement, and walking. Yeah. And when they were doing long shots of him walking in that, I swear that was Nick Castle. But
and then the stuntman for the other ones,
probably stuntman for whatever, any physical sort of stuff, or fighting or something.
Falling.
Yeah, that kind of thing, or maybe moving quicker or something, I don't know, whatever it might be. But some of those close-ups, I think, the close-up shots from about here, I'm pretty sure it was Nick Castle. Like the bit where he puts the mask on, I'm sure that's Nick Castle doing that. The bit at the bathroom bit, have you noticed also, Luke, that there's a lot of, if you look carefully at it, and I've probably watched it about 6 times so far, that trailer, but you keep spotting things, and I don't know if you saw it, but there's a few nods to the other films in the franchise, little tribute nods. Did you notice anything that stood out to you, or where you looked at that was from Halloween, whatever, I did. I spotted a couple of things. Did you see?
I don't think.
That reminds me of something else that happened in another one.
Yeah.
Did you not see that? Or?
No, I don't think so.
Right, I'll give you an idea. In the scene where the female reporter is in the bathroom in the cubicle,
and he
comes
puts the
in.
teeth down.
Yeah. But the scene where he's coming in and she's in the cubicle sitting down echoes the scene that was in H2O when he comes in with the girl and the mother and the girl in the cubicle, and he comes into the bathroom and he nicks their car.
Yes. Yeah.
And the other
I can
scene
see that
where he gets the overalls is like the scene that's in Halloween 4 when he kills the mechanic and steals his overalls. He always wears those coveralls. And you'll see, in the garage there, the gas station thing, there's a dead body on the ground, and that's obviously the owner of the shop that he's killed and taken his clothes.
Yeah.
So again, straight away, there's these little echoes to previous
different films, the franchise.
Yeah. So when they think they were going to do that, even though they've apparently scratched all, this is what as far as this is meant to be what's happening, because people kept saying, how can Laurie Strode be in this if she was killed in Resurrection? Well, what's happening is that all those films after Halloween 1 are being erased from history, and this film is the sequel to Halloween 1. So anything after Halloween 1, originally, like Halloween 2 onwards, are not relevant in this timeline. So
no, you're right.
So that's why they they can still give these little subtle tributes, that only the fans will pick up on. Casual viewer wouldn't even bat an eyelid on those scenes, like the mechanic thing or the cubicle thing. They wouldn't know. Oh, wasn't that in H2O? Because they wouldn't really have a clue. So those little things are just dropped in just to please the fans, you know.
And I think it won't be in the trailer. I thought it might have been, but isn't John Carpenter got a little cameo appearance in it?
I don't know. Maybe he has. It's possible.
I heard this.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I've heard.
I know that he's doing the music. I know he's doing the music score for it though.
Yeah,
which is really good.
Part, but
yeah,
I don't know.
But he might. Yeah, he could do. He might pop up for about a few seconds or something.
Yeah, bit like a Hitchcock film where I'll Hitchcock in every one of them. Yeah,
because I think
just go back to the first one.
Yeah,
when you came over, Frank, and we watched it, which was brilliant.
Yes,
I loved the bit where he's talking, and the car, which Michael Myers is in, just subtly goes past him.
Yeah, I like that.
It's just a great scene that of
how they dismiss one another.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Myers sees him. He sees just Loomis, but Loomis doesn't see him. Because as he's driving by, and that's the benefit of having HD. If you saw it in the original quality, you kind of miss the fact that he's looking over at Loomis when he's driving by. You can clearly see his face looking over, but suppose if you don't have that high def, you can't spot that. You know. So that was kind of cool. So he already knows that Loomis is on his case. You know, before he's always one jump ahead. You know.
I liked the bit in the new trailer with when they go and show him the mask and the dogs start barking.
Yeah.
They can feel the evil of the presence because they say that animals can sense evil.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
they know.
There was something instantly popping up, you know.
The dog's presence of they felt that this man is the devil, basically.
Yeah.
And that were good. That were one of the pinnacle bits of the trailer for me that I liked.
You could feel the tension really cranking up, couldn't you?
Yeah.
It was coming like chaotic there, wasn't it? You know, with the dog barking like mad, and then the other sort of inmates there going crazy as well.
Yeah.
Sort of screaming and like trying to get away and that, but they were all shackled up on chains, and
I know.
And they were kind of thinking, what the hell is he going to do? Is he going to flip or something? You know? But we didn't find out whether he flipped or not at that point, you know, because it cut him to another scene. But he had, I'm hoping, and I doubt they will show him, but I'm hoping they don't show him, his face, because that just ruins it for me. I hope they don't show his face.
I don't want to see his face.
His real face, you know. That's why when they did that, was showing that scene, when they came up to him in the courtyard and they showed the mask to him, he had his back turned to them all the time.
Yeah.
He was handcuffed from behind, but he was standing with his back facing them, so you never saw his face. And it was from a real long distance as well. So you didn't really get any idea of what he looked like anyway.
I think less is more.
Definitely, yeah.
Keep the mystery. Definitely.
And that's what worked with the original Halloween, is the fact that, you know, they didn't show him too much, if you know what I mean. You know? There was only a couple of shots where they actually showed, you always saw him from a distance, or you saw him in the shadows, or, you know, or you saw a shot from over his shoulder, him looking at someone, you know, peeping in a window, or from the back, like a bit faded out from the back view of them or something, and he's standing there, you know. Or he's standing at the hedge from a distance and then he disappears. But you never really saw him you never saw too much of him up close, you know?
That's right, yeah.
And there was only a couple of bits where you actually saw the mask pretty full on. Like the bit with the phone, you remember when he kills, strangles the girl with the phone and you see him holding the phone to his ear? That was the only bit where you actually saw him full, I think, you know?
Yeah. Nick Castle is going to be at the London Comic Con in July. His first ever UK tour, I believe. Yeah. So, I mean, that'd be good.
I'd like to meet him. Yeah, definitely. I would like to meet him.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Be great. Nick Castle John Carpenter, they knew one another way before Halloween, you know.
Yeah.
They were friends before that. And I think they even went back to Dark Star, which was Carpenter's first feature film, Dark Star, that science fiction thing. And Nick Castle worked on that as well. So they go back a bit. They go back a wee bit, yeah. And they were in a band together as well.
I didn't know that.
And then the band's name escapes me, but I think if I can find the name out, they're on YouTube somewhere, I think.
Right. I'll have to look them up. But
I can't remember the name of them now. But they were in a group together. Yeah. Extraordinary. But
so do you think this is going to be where Michael Myers actually gets killed by Laurie Strode?
I know there's like a couple of things that are going around about a couple of people, well, a lot of people trying to guess what the ending will be, whether this will be the be-all end-all of Halloween and it's going to be like, that's it, we're stopping it dead after this and there's no way he can come back. So either he gets killed or Laurie Strode gets killed or they both get killed. You know?
Yeah.
But I don't know what way it's going to swing. But will one of them get out alive? Will none of them get out alive? I don't know. At the end of it, it's difficult to say because everyone's the thing is we haven't even seen the whole film yet. But people, as people are, always want to speculate what the outcome's going to be at the end of the film without even seeing the beginning.
When it comes out, Frank, we should get together and go and watch it. Pictures.
I'd like to. Yeah, I'd like to see it. Obviously, I can't imagine it being that far behind the American date release. I really can't think it.
When things come out in America,
I
think get them just a little bit later. I'm pretty sure of it.
Yeah, I wouldn't think too much later though.
Yeah.
Well, maybe a week. I can't see it being a couple of months.
That would be come out October 31st.
Well, maybe, maybe.
That would be a perfect time, obviously.
Which would be ideal, yeah. But I was just thinking back to the original film, obviously.
Yeah.
What sort of things stood out for you in the original Halloween, Luke? What sort of things appealed to you about it? What caught your imagination about the first film? Why has it stayed with you so long?
I just think it's just so well done right from the start. You've got this little boy who kills his sister, innit?
His sister, yeah.
Kills his sister. That shot with the suit that he's got on, it's like a birthday clown suit kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's got that knife, and it's just that image sticks with me. It's just it's really, really eerie.
Mm.
And then Dr. Loomis following him all them years. And I remember that quote where he says he's got the blackest the black eyes of a doll's eyes, I think he says.
The devil's eyes.
Yeah. And he says, I tried to get through to him for all these years, and what I saw was pure evil. And it's just brilliantly directed, brilliantly acted. It's my favourite horror film of all time. I don't know, there's not a certain piece. It's the build-up, it's the music. The music is done so beautifully.
Yeah.
You find out that he's got out and he's checking him out at the house, and he's not there, and he's been here, he's been feeding here, he will come back tonight, and they just know that there's going to be a massacre on their hands if they don't stop him. And it's just so intense and gripping. It's every scene's just brilliant. It's just, yeah.
What's interesting about it also, though, is that he. I mean, it could be classed as a serial killer because he killed more than killed more than 2 people or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I think you have to cook 2 or more, 3 or whatever it is to become a serial killer. I'm not sure what the numbers are, but
killed more than that. Yeah.
yeah. It has to be a few. But really, apparently in the original film, he only killed about 4 people. I mean, once he escaped, after 15 years, I mean, he only killed about 4 people. He killed the guy. He killed the guy, the mechanic, the guy that he stole the clothes from. That no one spotted. Loomis didn't even spot him, but he was in the hedge, dead. And he
with that red pickup truck.
Yeah. So he's obviously killed him to get his overalls. To get his overalls, yeah.
What's the significance of them matches? Because
other than the fact that you originally
in the car
matches in with the nurse, don't you? When Loomis and the nurse are going up to the sanitarium, and he had Loomis had the matches, didn't he?
What was it? Red Rabbit. Red Rabbit.
Red Rabbit, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
And the guy, the Rabbit in Red.
Oh, Rabbit in Red. That's right.
And the guy, the pickup truck guy, he had them as well, didn't he?
Yes.
They were near his body, weren't they, or something? Yeah. So I don't know what the correlation is there, but
it's interesting though. I'd like to find out.
So I don't know if that clue actually means anything, but I mean, because they're 2 completely separate scenes.
Yeah,
don't really have much. They don't seem to have any connection, but maybe there's more to it than that. But I've always wondered about that, what that signified, but I still don't know.
So obviously, them killed the mechanic, got the clothes, and then he
gets the mask, doesn't he? He gets the mask and a couple of knives from that shop.
From the hardware store, yeah.
Again, interesting stuff, that those ideas at the time that were kind of like the audience knew what was happening, but the victim didn't until it was too late. There's just those clever little things that Carpenter did to play with your head, like having her come, 1 minute, like she tries the door of the car and it's locked. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Goes back to get the keys. When she gets back, the door's open. But she doesn't realise straight away what's just happened, No. But suddenly, when she gets in the car, she has this thought all of a sudden. Am I going mad? Well, how can that door be open? By the time she's kind of like getting that around in her head, he's leapt from behind and he's throttling her,
Yeah.
I just love the way that was done, those little things like that.
That was an eerie scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the glass fogging up and everything and all that with the breath. And
and I thought Halloween was the original slasher, and it's not.
It's not.
Apparently, it was Peeping Tom. What I thought really helped the film, give it that, is you can just feel his presence. It's got to be the breathing that he's doing.
Yeah.
I thought that really worked well. You see him when the little kid drops the pumpkin and he runs up and he's there and the music, and then you can just hear him breathing, or he's in the car and he's following him.
Yeah.
It's brilliantly done.
And I never picked up on the subtleties of that breathing sometimes, because sometimes you wouldn't hear it that clearly. Say there was something happening and he was nearby.
Mm.
I know, because maybe I just didn't have very good audio. I didn't pick up, without headphones, I wasn't picking up the fact that he was there.
Yeah.
And one thing sticks out to me, one scene where that breathing happened before you see him. And it was the bit where, and I never could hear it previously, but I've recently heard it now. So I never saw it coming at all before it happened. But other people heard the breathing and thought, "Fucking hell, he's nearby. He's here. And I didn't hear it. And but there was one particular bit that was really good, where you hear the breathing before you see him, and it was a scene near the end where Jamie has just it's the bit before the coat hanger scene, in the closet, and the two kids have come out of the room where she kept them in.
Yeah.
And she says it's okay now. I think he's dead, you know.
Yes.
And as that's happening, and I didn't even hear him coming up the stairs either. But apparently while they're talking, there's footsteps going up the staircase. And it's him coming up the stairs to the landing where they are. So I didn't even know he was climbing up the stairs either, because I couldn't hear it. And I couldn't hear the breathing either. And so the only bit I got the actual initial shock of him just standing there, you know, behind them.
Yeah.
And you know, and because the boy says you can't kill the boogeyman, and then he's there, he's standing behind her.
I know. I like the scene with where he's behind that bush, and then suddenly he's not there.
Yeah,
that's a great scene.
Yeah, and another one like that. They played around with that a bit, didn't they? Like, is he really there or isn't he really there? You know, in a split second he's there, then he's gone. You know, next time they look up, he's gone. And there was that early scene of that where Jamie Lee's at home and she looks out of the window and he's standing there by the washing line.
I know.
Clothes are waving in the wind and he's just standing behind it, and you just see the mask and the lower part of him.
And if you
remember, a second later she looks up and he's gone. You know.
I know, and if you remember Stephen King's It, the original, he stood behind the washing.
Yeah.
So have they? I don't know. Have they not copied it?
I mean, how early was written? Was it written way before it was made into a film, or? I mean, when the book came out? If it preceded Halloween, that'd be interesting. But,
yeah, I'd like to find out about that. Yeah, that'd be good.
So you just wonder if it's been like if King had that idea before Carpenter, or whether King watched Halloween and had that idea.
I know just got the idea. Yeah,
it's possible. Donald Pleasance, though, man, seriously, hats off to that fella.
Brilliant.
You know, what a wonderful choice for that part. You know, he brought so much class to that role, didn't he? You know.
Yes.
And a real presence. You know, and you probably know this anyway, Luke, because these stories have been around for years about who was.
You felt the story through his eyes.
Yeah, but it was you probably remember who was going to be who they approached to do the role before Pleasance, and it was going to be all the big horror stars of the day, you know, back in the Hammer horror. And so Christopher Lee was approached to play Loomis, and so was
Peter Cushing.
Yeah, so they were the two big heavyweights of horror, you know, back then. That Carpenter really admired. You know, he loved those Dracula films and stuff. So I suppose he was looking at it, and I suppose you could look at it that way. That Dracula was Myers, and Loomis was Van Helsing. You know.
Interesting.
Chasing the evil, you know. You could look at it like that, like a modern day version of that, you know. So that's probably why he wanted, like, you know, those people in it. But apparently, why they pulled out was that the Cushing was just doing Star Wars at that time, so he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And Christopher Lee turned it down because he looked at it and he thought it's just some low budget film. It's going to go nowhere. And so he said, I don't want to be involved in something like that. And then years later, it was years later in someone he was quoted as saying, some years after Halloween, he said, "I really regret turning down that role now." You know?
Yeah. Wow.
Because it turned out it would have been a good role for me in hindsight. You know. But was
it Christopher Lee that did? It was in Wicker Man, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
You've seen that, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. The original one.
Yeah, cult classic.
I did. Yeah, I like it a lot. Yeah. And he was good in that. I mean, he's always very good in everything he does, really. But so he regretted not, you know, after the fact, not accepting that role as Loomis. You know, he said it's one of the regrets of my life. So, but there you go. So the next one along was Donald Pleasance. You know.
Which just smashed it.
third choice along, and he was the one that did it. And now you can't imagine anyone else playing it, you know?
No.
Which is often what happens. He made the role his own.
That part was just written for him.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that because he was really he was really reluctant to play that part initially.
Yeah.
He didn't want to be involved in it. And apparently it was only his daughter that brought him around to the idea, because she had watched Assault on Precinct 13 by Carpenter.
Yeah.
The film before Halloween. And said she really liked the score, the music score on it, or something like that. And she said, "You want to try and work with him, Dad? He's cool," or something. So I think he did it to get kudos for his daughter, you know, by Daddy will be cool now, but because he worked with Carpenter. So I think she swung it really for him, you know.
Yeah.
And he gave it a chance, and apparently he loved doing it. He was apparently really good, you know, cracking jokes and playing around on set in between scenes, and the approach of filmmaking, the way it was done, because obviously it was low budget filmmaking, and that's something he hadn't done, you know, at that point, because he was a big star, you know. So he was always used to working on a big production with a lot of money around. So to go back to basics, he actually found it quite endearing, I think, you know.
But he was in Prince of Darkness, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. And he had done horror before Halloween as well. You know, he'd been in some horror films, but he did an awful lot of other things as well. He was, you know, he didn't do one particular style of film. You know.
Yeah.
Once Halloween came along, then he was getting known for those kind of, you know, more horror, I suppose, and stuff like that. You know.
Mm. But
anyway, Luke, just to wrap this up with you, any closing things you'd like to say about the first Halloween film?
It's just to me, it's just the ultimate slasher. It's just the boogeyman never dies, and how Carpenter's directed it. It just the legacy will just go on and on and on. I didn't actually like the Rob Zombie ones. I just didn't like them at all.
Yeah, we won't be covering them in this series, so that's all right.
They didn't do it for me. It's just they're just classics, aren't they? They're just classics.
Yeah.
It's directed well, and it just sticks with me. It gets better and better every time I watch it.
Yeah.
The music, how it's done, the actors, the directing, the terror, the mist, just all of it. It's just brilliant. Just that's all I can say.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thanks, Luke, for joining me on this, and thanks for your
very welcome, Frank.
Your memories and of it, and why it's special to you and stuff like that. You know. I'm now joined by Chris. How you doing there, Chris?
Hey, Frank. I'm well. Thanks for having me on to the podcast.
You're welcome, man. So let's get your thoughts on this new trailer, Chris. The first Halloween movie for nearly 10 years. You know,
I think so far all the signs look positive to me. You know, because from the trailer, I got the sense that the people doing it understood the Halloween mythology. I know they're doing some strange things by ignoring a lot of the sequels and saying, hey, you know, everything after the first film didn't exist, and Michael Myers is no longer this mystical figure that can just sort of get up from gunshots and things, and it's just a man again. But it looks like they're being respectful of the mythology. So from what I saw, it looks like a film that belongs in the Halloween canon. You know, there's lots of nice wide shots of Haddonfield streets and tree-lined neighbourhoods and all the things that so perfectly captured Halloween in the first film. You know, and just the people involved, the names. It's a Blumhouse thing, right? So it's got a few of the more well-respected modern horror makers behind it. And you know, everything that's been said from them since they announced it just indicates that they're treating it with some respect. And, you know, and the trailer is real interesting because, you know, Laurie Strode is now a warrior woman who's appears to have been sort of preparing herself for the last, I don't know how many years have actually gone by. What is it? Closer to 35, 40 now?
40.
Yeah, you know, she's just been lifting weights, Terminator 2 Sarah Connor style, and she's ready to take on the mask, man. You know, it's just it looks great. I mean, that's what the original film was. It was a masked man stalking a bunch of people. Now, I guess, you know, he has his chance again, and she might have her chance to stalk him.
Yeah, tables are turning by the look of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, the tables have turned, and you know, it looks like Michael Myers, or the Shape, as he may or may not be known in this new one, is sort of back. And what struck me was how upfront the trailer is about the fact that they are wiping out essentially another, you know, 300 minutes of Halloween sequels. Because at one point, one of the characters says to Laurie Strode, "Aren't you Michael Myers' sister? Isn't that your brother?" And her response in the trailer is, "No, that's just some silly story people made up." So they're treating everything
that was
like a myth.
No, that wasn't Laurie they were talking to. That was the three young group of people, and I think that's the girl that's playing Laurie's granddaughter in it. I think
granddaughter. Yeah. But it's interesting because at least they're being upfront about it. You know, if they just came out with a film and, you know, I think most real Halloween fans have the most respect for the first film and maybe one other, but they secretly like. But there'd be just as many Halloween fans these days who were brought up on sequels, who, you know, expect a little bit more blood and guts. And, you know, it's got a pretty broad audience. And, you know, for them to sort of wind back the clock and say, look, we're just going back to the first film and ignoring everything that came after it. If they had just done that, it might have sort of, you know, been a little arrogant. So I really like the way they've handled it. And so I've certainly never sort of seen them build. It's very meta. They're putting their own poorly conceived sequels. They're writing them into the film as an urban legend. It's just, I think that particular aspect of it is really interesting. And everything else I'm seeing, you know, we're seeing Michael Myers, thank Christ, as a man again, not some crazed homicidal lunatic who's able to regenerate, survive mine shaft cave-ins, burns, explosion, you know, with links to some mystical druid force.
Yeah.
Just a man who isn't a very nice one and, you know, might have a little bit of evil packed in him too. As Loomis says, you know, he may be the devil, but, you know, he's come in the shape of a man, not some crazed druid.
Yeah.
What about you? How'd you feel about it?
Well, what I've seen so far, I've got high hopes for it, I think.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. I think that's the general take.
I'm quite optimistic about it, you know.
Yeah, me too.
There was enough in there in that 2 minutes or so, whether it ran for. I think this was actually a bit more of an extended cut than the one that was shown at that film screening that they did of it. You know, that was only open to like the film industry, I think, and Jamie Lee introduced it in this select private audience screening, I think, of the trailer. And I think this one is actually a bit longer than that. So they kind of gave the fans a bit more because they had to wait quite a while to see it. They thought, well, we better give them a little bit more, you know. So I think this is slightly extended from what they.
I was surprised actually at the amount of story that was actually in the trailer. I expected to see, because I think it's still a teaser, isn't it? It's not. Is it a trailer or a teaser?
Well, I would class it as a trailer because it was, like I say, the length of it was.
What are they calling it, though? Are they calling it a trailer? Or I thought they were still calling it a teaser.
Maybe they're going to bring out a longer one than that. But I mean, it was quite a long trailer.
Well, I was going to say, for a teaser, it had a lot of story into it. I expected to see a couple of hooded shots of Michael Myers and maybe Laurie Strode sort of sitting with a shotgun in an armchair.
Yeah, I was surprised they actually showed that much of Myers in it, and broad daylight shots of him as well. in it. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't think they showed so clearly.
Yeah.
It's quite intriguing that they showed so much. I thought they'd hold back on it really for a trailer, but they didn't. They showed him like, you know, walking around, open in the street and everything.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Or standing in the mental institution surrounded by other.
Lit. You know, clearly.
Yep. Just a man. Yeah. I like that about it. You know, that's what I liked about the film. It was just a man, you know, the whole mystery of him disappearing at the end and everything else. Well, that's just a really cool mystery.
Yeah.
Maybe she just, you know, maybe she didn't. Maybe he is all powerful, but the beauty of it is not knowing, not understanding he's very hard to kill, but the possibility that he isn't is far more tantalizing than some sort of, you know, slasher Terminator.
Yeah. Yeah.
To me, anyway. Because then at least there's some stakes. You know, if you have this character who cannot be killed, i.e. the Michael Myers in the later films, where does the story really ever go? What really are the stakes? Because, you know, every film sort of ends the same way. Well, now we've killed Michael Myers in a slightly different way. Now he's been dropped down a mine shaft. Now he's had his fucking head cut off. You know, and always find a way to bring it back. Yeah, it's nice to see Michael Myers again as a man, not as a figure, not as a mythical figure. I think.
Which is another, obviously, this is sort of leading right into this question, because this question's been going around, as you can imagine, before anyone even sees the movie proper. Is they're talking about the, you know, without even seeing the beginning, the middle of it, they're talking about the end of it already. They're saying, will there be more after this?
Yeah,
you know,
that's just exciting.
Because if this is really hugely successful in terms of like box office money, and there's no reason why it can't be,
no,
would that tempt them to make more? You know,
yeah, that's a very interesting question, isn't it? And if they did, well,
how are they going to do it? If they would like to make it more mortal, how are they going to get around that one? You know?
Well, you know, and it would be not if they do, then more
just become totally shit again, because they're going to just go. They're going back to the. Someone was saying that if they do that, then basically they're dissing everything that they were going to do initially anyway.
You know? They're just shitting their own head. If there's a Halloween 2 announced within 18 months, I mean, it's just going to be, what the hell? Like, where are we? Yeah. I think look. It depends on what the story is in the new one. You know, they may do what Halloween H2O did when they sort of revisited the mythology before and ignored everything else, or ignored half and this bit and not that bit, not this bit and not that bit. So in H2O, they picked and choose what they decided were going to call canon and what they weren't, out of different parts of different films. I think, you know, 1 was in there, 2 was in there, and bits of 4 or something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be really interesting if they want to carry it on. They're going to have to put just as much thought into how they announce or approach a potential Halloween 2 as they would of this film. You know, and perhaps even more.
Because people are more difficult the second time. Yeah.
Yeah. But you're going to ignore your own sequels now and just, you know, retcon it again?
Yeah,
what are you going to do now?
That would be pointless, though.
Just roll the dice. What do we have for Michael Myers? Maybe we could have him as a burlesque dancer in a cabaret. You know, who knows? Like,
I mean,
where do you go?
What would be the point in retcon? I don't know. What would be the point in just like them wiping the slate again and doing another timeline after that one? That would just be
exactly. That would reek of lunacy.
It would be ridiculous. You know.
I expect to see a very strong beginning, middle, and end in this new Halloween film. I expect this new Halloween film to really end Halloween. That's what I expect. I don't know if they want to build a franchise out of this. I don't know if they need to.
Yeah.
And I really don't know if they can. Because there's a franchise there already that they're choosing to mostly say, you know, in a cheeky way, they're really inconsistent. Some of them are kind of okay. Some of them are really a bunch of horse pucky. So we're going to ignore them. It's a real interesting place for those guys to be, I think. I just expect to see an end to Halloween in this new film. I'd be amazed if we don't get an end. And by end, you know, whether that means needing to see Michael Myers cut up into 90 pieces, run through a meat grinder, then liquefied and eaten by a bunch of cannibals, well, if that's what it takes, then they should probably just go over the top and put it in.
Yeah.
Because if they're going to kill him off, there's going to be no question. Well, there was no question in Halloween to me when they decapitated him, but they still found a way. So, you know, I think the Hollywood money movie making machine system will do whatever. Will do whatever it just naturally does organically. But
Yeah.
you know, because we have such profound respect for the Halloween film and for the, you know, and for the franchise in some ways, and particularly John Carpenter, who is just the fucking man. Especially back, he was of his time, John Carpenter. You know, a lot of the stuff that he did later on wasn't particularly good. Very patchy, kind of funky, low budget CGI and stuff. I wasn't on board with it, but you know, there was no one doing horror and doing more for the horror world in the 70s and 80s, I think, than John Carpenter. At least in the American system. You know, you got Dario Argento running around just destroying the place with incredible films during the same period. But, you know, in the US, it was pretty much only Carpenter and Romero in that period that were making horror films interesting. You know, there were lots of them. They just weren't interesting.
Yeah.
You know, that was the thing, you know, films like Halloween. My love affair with horror started when my uncle threw a Betamax cassette in his old Betamax recorder back in the early 80s, and it was a Betamax copy of Dawn of the Dead, the original Dawn of the Dead. And I just sat there like dumbfounded the whole time, because it was a horror film, you know, and it was gory and horrendous and it was all these things, but, you know, it had social satire running through it. And those are the things that we're starting to see emerge now with modern films like It Follows and Get Out, because for the 30 years between the 70s, 80s and where we are now, horror was just sort of all over the map. You know, it broke off into little subgenres and it just did a whole bunch of stuff. There was a whole bunch of bad movies, a whole bunch of good movies, but nothing that was really mainstream. You know, you're either a horror fan or you weren't. Mums and dads and families go and see horror films. Now they go and see things like It Follows and Get Out because they have a social angle to them. And Carpenter was the same, you know, with back in the Halloween days when he did The Thing and films like It. Films like It. The film he did, Prince of Darkness, They Live. So, you know, I've kind of been all in on horror pretty much since then. And, you know, Carpenter was just doing some amazing things back in that period. And to know that he's involved in the new Halloween, at least to some degree, because let's face it, I know for a fact from listening to interviews and stuff, while most of the other Halloween sequels have tried to bait him back into that world. So I think pretty much every cycle of Halloween where they've said, okay, it's sequel time, you know, Halloween 6, we're going in this wacky, weird, wonderful direction with screaming druids and blood sacrifice and everything else. I think every time that's happened, Carpenter's been approached to some extent to be involved. And if you kind of dig deep into what really happened back when Halloween was released, so the original Halloween was this juggernaut of profitability because it was made on a shoestring. You know, in this day and age, it's equivalent. You know, it was made on about $100,000, very low budget. People wore their own clothes on set because they didn't have a big wardrobe budget. You know, it was really lo-fi.
Yeah.
And up until I think the Blair Witch Project later, it was the most profitable art house film, I think, in history. Just to know that the man who did that and launched that is involved in the new ones, it just warms my heart. I just know there's going to be I just know it's going to be, going in, it's going to be a good film. The question will be whether it's going to be a great film. Because it takes a lot to be a great film in the horror genre now, because it's surrounded by a lot of really, really good films. If you had told me 10 years ago we'd have horror films like, and don't get me wrong, you know, Get Out is a great movie. I had a ball with it. I don't hold it with this revered respect that a lot of others do. You know, it's fun and it's hokey and, you know, it's over the top and completely ridiculous, I hope. But, you know, when you have films like It Follows, which are just Babadook, which are just masterpieces, you'd have told me 10 years ago we'd be seeing a resurgence of horror and it would wear this face, I would have laughed. I'd have thought, nah, no one's going to make a horror movie that costs $50 million and makes $500 million. You know, it's never going to happen, but it's happening. And to have Halloween coming back with John Carpenter somehow involved in this day and age, in this market, is just awesome. I reckon it's just awesome. When Carpenter did Halloween, and it was an art house film with an art house budget and made squillions, he didn't make the squillions. The studios made the squillions.
Yes.
And what actually got returned to him, relatively speaking, was a very small amount of money, which is why he did sign on for the Halloween 2s and the Halloween 3s. He wanted his fucking paycheck. You know, that's the thing.
That's how he got back through that.
Know, whether it sounds mercenary or not is true. Carpenter, in his eyes, never felt that he received the right form of remuneration from the original film. When you strike gold or, you know, you hit lightning in a bottle, you would expect as the director and writer and creative driving force of that thing that makes all that money to sort of be paid a fair amount for your work. And I think he never really felt, and I've heard him say it in interviews, he never really got his proper paycheck for Halloween, which is why, you know, I'm sure he did for The Thing and the other successful films that he had later. But yeah, and that was kind of my point about the whole John Carpenter thing. You know, I read an interview where people were talking about, you know, they wanted to get involved in the latest Halloween film, and his interest at that period was sitting on his couch eating chicken wings. So that was his way of saying, nah, you know, because it's a business. You know, he's a creative guy and he's done a lot for the film industry and the horror industry. But, you know, dude's got to live.
Yeah, true. And then he went, and you know, in between that time, right, in more recent years anyway, at least, he's concentrated more on his music career, which has been fascinating. So it's kind of like being another string to his bow in a sense. But it was always part of it anyway, because he was always doing his own scores in the early days and stuff. So, and he was in a band.
Yeah.
So, you know, music's been a great part of his life. But it was nice to see him get on the road and do all that kind of thing. So that was another John Carpenter, you know, sideline. You know, when he wasn't directing, when he's kind of like directing now, it seems. He hasn't got a feature film since 2010, I think. I don't know if he'll ever go back to directing or not, but
I'd actually, you know, I'm surprised we haven't seen John Carpenter turn up to assist in areas like photography and creative direction, because, you know, every one of his films, the John Carpenter films, particularly early ones, they all have a very distinctive look.
Oh yeah,
they're all very cinemascope and they're all very organic.
Yeah,
and they have that beautiful thing that digital photography can't capture, that beautiful pink, warm, unnatural hue to everything. And, you know, I'm surprised we haven't seen him pop up to lend that sort of creative juice to other things that aren't necessarily his. I've always been very surprised that I've never sort of turned on a non-Carpenter thing later in the world and not seen, you know, director of photography John Carpenter or creative director John Carpenter. I'm very, very surprised that we've never seen that thing happen.
Yeah. And that creation of Michael Myers, to me, and you could argue it's different if you want, and I'm quite happy for you to do so, but it's the only masked killer of the genre that I still have. He's the top one for me. There's something about him with that blank mask and the fact he doesn't speak and he takes his time over killing, because he doesn't do a lot of killings. He spends most of the time just watching people and putting, you know,
very low body count,
building up the tension and stuff like that before he kills them. I think he enjoys more the thrill of like being a voyeur more than a murderer, you know.
The thrill of the hunt. Yeah,
it's kind of that's just like the little payoff at the end. But I think he enjoys the stalking more than he does the actual act. I could be wrong, of course, but
it's like a little band.
He just seems to take an awful long time to go about his business.
You know what it is, Frank? It's like a little dance. It's like a little ritual at a dance when you're trying to ask a young lady to dance with you. You don't want to go right up to her. You want to do a little bit of observation first.
Yeah.
And then once you've done your observation, rather than going straight to her, you might go to her friend, and just kind of say, would you like to dance with me? And then you take one of the friends. And then you drive a knife through her and stick her like 6 foot up on a wall, and then you move on to the girl you're after. It's like a little dance he does in the film, He's just prancing around, And what I like about it is, slashers later, and it was probably just because the market was flooded with these types of films. But look at the groundedness of it. Michael Myers is driving a car down the street in broad daylight.
Yeah, with his mask on. And no one's finding that unusual.
You don't see the slasher driving mum's stolen station wagon in a slasher. You see a slasher waiting in a cupboard or in a crawl space, and, it just has this groundedness to it. It's just so nice.
Because he's just not he's not the kind of conventional. Let's see how many bodies we can eradicate in the first 5 minutes of the film. Which is what it became later on with movies. How many people can we kill? In a 90-minute movie or something. The body count was.
Someone did a Halloween film body count analysis a while back, and I saw it, and I haven't looked at it again in 10 years, and I never will again because it's just kind of ludicrous. But one thing that strikes you immediately was the lack of body count in the original film. I cannot remember.
4 people in it,
but it's under 4 or 5. Yeah, it's a couple of people.
Originally, obviously, he killed his sister when he was a kid, so that's the first one. But when he got out after the 15-year break, I think he only killed about 4 people, including the guy that had he got the overalls from, the guy in the truck.
Exactly, Frank. And then in later films like
only 3, Bob, the guy with the glasses, the one he lifted up with one hand. So there's another one. Yeah. So you got So you got Judith Myers, you've got the truck driver, you've got Bob, you've got PJ Souls, you've got Annie. That was it.
Yeah, that's a low body count. And compare that to the body count of some of the later films.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't seen a lot of the very later ones in a long time because they're not very good and I just don't revisit them. But I think in one of them, he killed more people before the credit sequence, escaping from his latest whatever before the credits rolled than he did in the entire first film. But by the time the first 5 minutes had passed, he killed 2 janitors, a cleaner, 9 nurses. It was just a slaughterhouse. Just to get out of whatever weird situation he was in at the time.
Was that H2O you're thinking of? Sorry, was it?
Maybe 6.
No, not H2O. Resurrection?
I think, it was certainly one of them.
Like Resurrection, because the first 10 minutes or 15 minutes of it is the bit with Laurie in it, where she dies.
Yeah, I think that was probably it. It starts, the film starts at 10, at volume level 10.
Yeah.
And, you look at Halloween, it starts at a nice, let's talk about the start of that film, Frank. So, and this is John Carpenter's genius, and this is why I'm all in on John Carpenter, and I always have been. So you look at Halloween, and it's shot in this beautiful wide cinemascope thing where, you see these beautiful shots full of detail and full of life and full of organic things. Everything's full and happening. Look at the first 5-10 minutes of Halloween. You're in that car, and it's dark, and it's raining, and you can't see a thing. And the feeling of claustrophobia and of just being stuck in that car and the outside world just being this foreign thing that's full of darkness. And then Michael Myers comes out of that darkness. Maybe it's an accident or maybe it's artistry. I'd like to think it's artistry, but if it is, it's just incredible. And then you have the later Halloween films where, you know, rather than bringing a character to life in that kind of respectful way, in that creative way, you know, you meet Michael Myers, you know, he's carving his way through a mental asylum and killing the helpless. You know, it's just, you compare the two, there's just no comparison. You know, a lot of people just don't, they look at a film like Halloween, and because it's just so effective, because of those subtle things you don't notice, people, you know, maybe the artistry sometimes is lost on them. They'd rather watch Halloween 7 where, you know, it's a little bit closer to home, where he's murdering people in a Big Brother house or whatever else. But, you know, the feeling of just claustrophobia and being in a place in the first 10 minutes of Halloween in that car is just incredible. And then once you get out of the car, then it just becomes this sweeping thing where Michael Myers could just be anywhere. You know, Michael Myers is going to sort of emerge from the darkness, and it's the darkness that we're experiencing in the confines of this car at night, not knowing what's out there. And then once we know what's out there, it's just all opened up to us. You know, it's just, it's artistry of the highest order, my friend. I can't say enough good things about Mr. Carpenter.
And
undervalued.
I mean, it's nice to know that he's on board. I don't know what kind of capacity he's on board. I mean, obviously he didn't write the script, he didn't direct it, the new one. I mean, he's kind of like in a supervisory capacity, I think. He's probably got a red pen. People are sending him stuff, and he's probably ticking it with a red pen. Yeah, I think he's going by the sort of saying, this is how it, you know, they're probably asking lots of questions, and he's kind of giving these, his notes back to them saying, well, maybe you want to do that, or, you know, maybe this shot would be better like that, or maybe he wouldn't do this. This is not how he works, or this is not what she'd say. And then he's kind of like just giving suggestions back, or I'd say it's a fairly friendly, like, partnership.
I would say so, Frank. Because, I mean, I don't know.
So he's like a creative consultant and that kind of thing, you know.
Because I don't know the true John Carpenter. I just get a sense of him in all the interviews because I sort of slavish over him like a ridiculous fanboy. I've heard him do a lot of interviews, and I know that his involvement in the new one, I think he would put his heart and soul into it, and I think he would respect the simple thing that it's trying to do, whether it's right or not to ignore all those sequels. Well, you can argue that till the cows come home, but I think he thinks in his heart and heart that the right thing is being done. So I think he'd be giving it his all.
On that beautiful note there, we'll wrap it up now, Chris. And thanks so much for coming on, mate, and talking about this. It's been really nice to speak with you about Halloween.
Same, Frank, same.
Nice memories and stuff, you know.
Thanks for keeping the Halloween spirit alive, Frank.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, thanks so much, Chris. And as I say, see everyone back for Halloween 2 and see how we do with that one. So all the best to you guys. Goodbye for now.